You could hear something in the distance, carried by the wind. I was looking toward that ravine, barely visible through the fog. Down there, deep in La Rumorosa, I thought about what might be hiding at night. About all the legends I've been told. About everything that might be real. Good evening, community. Thank you for being here. This is a new account, and with it, a new dose of darkness. Horror stories, paranormal tales, and tonight in particular, legends that feel far too real to be just stories. Pay close attention. Tonight's stories aren't like the others. I want you to listen carefully, because this time, more than ever, they're an invitation. And you'll soon understand why. But before we begin, allow me to say something, especially to you who needed to hear it today. You are not alone. You're part of this community. And even if it doesn't seem like it now, everything is going to be okay. Close your eyes, relax, and let yourself be taken. You are now entering the world of terror profundo. I wasn't alone at home. This happened to me just yesterday. I got home in the late afternoon, just as the sky was beginning to darken. It's a small apartment. There's a studio where my husband works and only one bedroom. Every time I come home, my cats run to greet me. One of them, Cheapo, came up to me. I started talking to her like always, asking how her day had been. And then, out loud, I said, "I'm home." From a studio, I heard my husband's voice. "Hey," he answered like always, from his computer. I yelled from the living room that I was just going to change out of my heels into something more comfortable, that I had to go out again for some shopping. He just chuckled softly as if teasing me. I walked over to his studio to greet him. But it was dark, the light was off, and he wasn't there. It seemed odd. I called out again. "Did you go to the bedroom?" I thought maybe I was mistaken, that out of habit I imagined hearing him respond. Maybe he had lain down for a bit, or was in bed playing PlayStation. But when I opened the bedroom door, he wasn't there either. I froze. There was no sound, just me and the cats. And in that moment, I realized I was completely alone at home. I grabbed my phone to call him, but I already had a message from him. "I'm going to the store. Do you want anything?" The message was several minutes old. He had left before I got home. But I swear to you, I swear I heard him perfectly. His voice, his tone, his laugh, everything, as if he were really there. And it's not the first time something strange has happened in this house. But it is the first time something has manifested so clearly, so unmistakably. And the most unsettling part, it happened during the day. The Witch of the Stones. Hello, community. I'm really excited to share this with you. I don't know if it will get published, but this story is based on a very old legend that's still alive among those who remember it. So far, I haven't seen it circulating online, but I know many people will instantly recognize it. To those from Takati, especially, I want to ask, have you ever heard of the Witch of the Stones out there in La Rumorosa? I'm sure some people right now are saying, yes, finally someone's talking about her. It's not just a family story. I know it's been passed down for generations, even though many don't know it. And it's important not to confuse it with other legends from the area, because La Rumorosa, with its impossible curves, bottomless ravines, and overwhelming landscape, is a highway built for mystery. Here, on Relatos de la Noche, we've already heard several stories about this place. Some well-known, others completely new. From people who enter a time loop and spend hours repeating the same stretch of road, to the spirit of the woman who hitches rides with truckers who stop to rest, or the supposed accident victims who ask for help at the roadside, only to vanish as you approach. And that's just the paranormal. Because then there are the UFO stories of impossible lights at the top of the hills, of creatures watching from the shadows of campsites. La Rumorosa isn't just a highway. It's a portal charged with energy, and any Baja Californian who's been through there can confirm it. But what I'm going to tell you about the Witch of the Stones is something you won't find in books. It's something that still lives in the voices of those who have seen or felt her. And tonight, I want you to meet her too. But this is another legend, and to tell it, I have to take you with me back to my childhood a little over 30 years ago. My family has always been spread across the state. Uncles in Tijuana, my grandparents in Ensenada, my mom's family in Mexicali, and us, my parents, my siblings, and my Uncle Abraham, always lived in Tecate. My Uncle Abraham, for as long as I can remember, he lived with us. He was my dad's younger brother. When my parents got married and moved to Tecate, Abraham, only 15 years old, went with them. By the time I was born, he was already 18. So even though I don't remember it, he was the one who cared for me most as a baby. Later, when my sister was born 4 years later, my uncle began traveling for work. His room in the house was still there, but his visits became less frequent over time. Eventually, he traveled all the roads of the country, and every time he came back, he brought gifts and something even more valuable, stories. Stories we loved. Tales of adventures in places that felt like another world. Because for a little girl from northern Baja California, hearing about Chiapas, Oaxaca, or Yucatan was like hearing about another country. To give you an idea, the distance between Tijuana and Merida is almost the same as between Merida and Brazil. Mexico is a vast country, and my Uncle Abraham knew it from end to end. A night I'll never forget happened during the birthday of one of my cousins in Mexicali. That birthday was very special. She had just beaten cancer. The whole family was there to celebrate. And right in the middle of the party, my Uncle Abraham arrived by surprise. We hadn't seen him in months, so for my sister Angie and me, it was a huge joy. I was 9 years old at the time. It was already late, and many relatives were getting ready to sleep over at the house. But my uncle, who had just come from a long trip, preferred to return to Tecate. He doesn't drink, and for him, driving at night was no problem. He told my parents he was leaving, and I, bored of the now adult party, asked to go with him. My sister asked to come too. So at 10:30 p.m., we left for Tecate. Around 11, we were crossing the Laguna Salada, a vast desert plain, a dry lake, an endless straight line that leads you to the foot of the mountain just before starting the climb to La Rumorosa. Since we left, I had been needing to go to the bathroom, and by that point, I was holding it so badly that I wasn't even paying attention to what my uncle was saying. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and said, "Sorry, Uncle, I can't hold it any longer." I was embarrassed. I knew my dad would have scolded me for not going before leaving, but my uncle didn't scold me. I just saw an expression I didn't expect, concern. "Okay, do you think you can hold it until the checkpoint?" I said no, I really couldn't. Then he replied, "All right, we're near a rest stop. You can go down between the rocks there." For those who don't know it, let me explain. La Rumorosa is a winding highway through cliffs and ravines. Two narrow lanes, one uphill and one downhill, each on its own mountain edge. So stopping isn't easy. There are only certain areas known as descansos, small dirt pull-offs, some big enough for several vehicles, others just enough for one. All of them have water tanks because cars often overheat while climbing the steep slope. We finally reached one of those rest areas. My uncle turned on the hazard lights, pulled over, and as soon as we stopped, I ran out. I had to go right next to the road between the rocks. I remember the cold was brutal. That kind of cold that burns. The kind of cold you only feel in La Rumorosa. My uncle also got out. He lit a cigarette and walked to the other side of the rest stop, giving me some privacy. And then everything changed. From that exact point where we were, you could already see the lights of Mexicali. The entire city stretched out in the distance like a glowing map under the dark sky. And down there, under one of those thousands of twinkling lights, my family was still gathered. Surely the music continued, the chatting, the party, while we were here in the middle of nowhere. Everything was silent, just the wind, which that night blew softly, as if the mountain were holding its breath. Maybe that's why I heard it so clearly. A sound that didn't belong. A scream, a distant wail, a woman's voice. I ran toward where my uncle was, even though the cigarette smell had always disgusted me. "Did you hear that?" I asked, trembling. He looked at me without surprise. "You did too?" He quickly turned, scanning both sides of the road, and then muttered under his breath, "Son of a bitch, don't tell me we stopped here." "Here? What do you mean?" I asked, nervous. "This rest stop," he said, still staring down at the ravine. But it seems she wasn't after me. He paused, looked at me intensely, like he was deciding if I was ready to hear what was coming. And then he asked more quietly, "Are you afraid of witches?" I shook my head, though I wasn't really sure what kind of witches he meant. "But you know they're real, right?" I chuckled a little. I didn't know if he was serious. Witches like the neighbor who gave my mom evil eye bracelets? Or like the ones in the stories? The real bad ones? My uncle tossed the cigarette, put it out with his soul, and spoke with total seriousness. "Look, kid, I'm asking because there's a witch here. Down there, in that ravine. They say she got trapped between the stones. No one knows how exactly. Some say daylight caught her and she didn't get away in time. A trucker I knew said maybe someone hit her legs." "Her legs?" "Yeah, they say witches remove their legs to transform, to fly, or become animals and do their wickedness. And if someone hides their legs, they get stuck. That's what they say, but no one knows for sure. The only sure thing is that she's there." He pointed down into the ravine. I looked at him, both disbelieving and fascinated. "If you want," he said, "we can go closer. Just a little, so you can see her, but she can't see you." And then he added something I'll never forget. "The good thing about knowing these things exist is that you also understand God exists, because there are things in this world that only He can contain." I stayed silent and told him yes, that I wanted to see her, not because I wasn't scared, but because something inside me needed to know if it was real. My little sister had already fallen asleep in the car. My uncle locked it up tight, motioned to me, and we started heading down among the rocks. There was no path, no trail, just stones, and you had to jump carefully. That's when we heard it again. A second scream. Clearer. Closer. My uncle froze. Is this a joke? I asked, my voice breaking. But he only crouched slowly, braced himself on a rock, and signaled for silence with a finger to his lips. Then he gestured with his head to the right. Down. I crouched next to him, my heart pounding in my ears like a drum. And then I saw her. I don't know how to describe it without sounding insane, but there, in the shadows, was a woman, dressed in black, sitting on the stones, or maybe trapped between them. Her arm moved unnaturally, not like a person, but like a broken puppet, like a mechanical arm, forced. The movement was slow, rigid, chilling. At first I thought she was dancing or making some strange gesture, but as my eyes adjusted more to the dark, I noticed something terrifying. She looked like she was drying out, as if her skin was cracking, as if it was a decomposing body still moving. And she wasn't doing anything else, just waiting among the stones, as if she knew that sooner or later someone would pass by again. She turned toward us. I'm sure she turned toward us. It was like time stopped, paralyzed. All I could do was get up and start scrambling back up the slope as fast as I could, jumping between the rocks. But I reached one I couldn't climb. I couldn't reach. Fear made me cry, desperate. Then I felt my uncle grab me by the legs and push me up so I could keep going. I reached the car breathless, heart racing, barely able to breathe. The cold was unbearable. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. Even as a kid, I refused to accept it. Witches aren't real, I repeated to myself. My mom says they're just stories. My uncle got in after me and looked at me with concern. I think he regretted showing me that when he saw how real my fear was. We got in the car. He took off a bracelet he always wore, one with colored stones and a deer's eye that Seed used in many Mexican amulets, and a small cross. He apologized, but told me evil was real and very close, and that there was no other place where you could see it so clearly and safely trapped, that the bracelet would protect me, and he gave it to me. The Witch of the Stones, too. The next day I was still so scared that I woke up late. I couldn't even eat breakfast. I was woken up by my mom yelling at my Uncle Abraham. He had told her that he had shown me the Witch of the Stones. That stayed burned into my memory as part of nightmare. My mom told him I was too young, that it would make me live in fear, and that it wouldn't help me at all. That afternoon, my mom tried hard to convince me it was just a legend, that the scream we heard was just the wind playing with the rocks, that what I saw down there were just moving branches, and that the mind creates shapes and ghosts when you want to believe. But the strange thing is that she let me keep my uncle's bracelet, and every time I left the house without it, she reminded me to wear it. Over time, I learned that people say when you see a witch, your perception becomes more sensitive, that you become much more receptive to the paranormal. I didn't see many things afterward. I guess I've been lucky to live in places where there isn't much mystery. The first few times I went back through Rumorosa after that, I felt such a deep fear that I could hardly breathe. Eventually I got used to it, but it's strange, very strange, to drive through that highway knowing what it might be hiding. Because I know that if the Witch of the Stones exists, many other things could also inhabit that place. A place with so much energy, with so many deaths. And that's something anyone can notice, even in broad daylight. Just look over any ravine. In all of them, really all of them, there are remains of cars, trucks, buses down deep. It's a place that puts you face to face with death. A tragic death. Sudden. Violent. What I'm about to tell you is something that happened just a couple of years ago. I still live in Takati. I still visit my family, especially now that my parents are no longer here. Taking the highway is something normal for me, though I don't like to travel at night or when the weather is bad. One weekend, I went to visit my grandparents in Ensenada. I went with my wife and her sister, who's in high school, and spend a lot of time with us. I feel that when we have children, she'll be to them what my Uncle Abraham was to me. On the way back, we stopped in Mexicali to drop off an aunt and have dinner with her. But we saw that there was a snowstorm threatening La Rumorosa. Snow in those mountains makes it beautiful, but also much more dangerous. That's why they often close the road for hours. We rushed to get through before the storm hit. But I wasn't in my car. To travel more comfortably, we took my wife's Liberty, an old SUV, but reliable. That night, because we were in a hurry, I had to go faster than I usually do, and the SUV couldn't take it. Halfway up La Rumorosa, it started to overheat. Despite the cold, or maybe thanks to it, it held on a bit longer. But I had to slow down and look for a rest stop so the engine could cool off and I could check the radiator. I even smiled when I saw that rest stop. I hadn't stopped there in many years. We checked the radiator. It had lost all the water. We refilled it and decided to wait a while before continuing. Once we got to the top of the climb, we could drive at a moderate speed to Takati without much trouble. We made a couple more stops, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to freak anyone out by telling them where we were. Suddenly, my sister-in-law, who was near the edge of the ravine taking pictures of the landscape, ran over to me and said, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" I replied, intrigued. She took us to the edge of the ravine and asked us to listen closely. "Do you hear the wind? How it sounds. Creepy, like a horror movie," she said with a nervous smile. My wife already knew the story of the time I saw the witch. She looked at me, tilted her head, understanding what was happening and putting the pieces together. And then she just said, "Don't tell me it's here." I stepped down to a rock at the start of the ravine's slope and pointed down toward the spot where she should still be trapped, behind a large rock and a dry branch. It looked just like it did when I was a child. Not even the occasional landslides had changed anything. I heard my wife telling her sister that there's a legend about a witch trapped between the stones, condemned to remain there for all eternity, unable to die, that you can only hear her at night. And the strange thing is that it wasn't even dark yet. I also heard my sister-in-law mocking my wife a little, saying how could she believe in that she understood it coming from me, but from her. And you know what? The funny thing is my sister-in-law believes in ghosts, but the idea of a witch seems ridiculous to her. That's when we heard something, a very close wail, almost like something was climbing up toward us. Without saying a word, we all ran back to the SUV. I closed the hood and started the engine, completely forgetting about the motor and the radiator. Community, even after all these years, still wear the same protection bracelet. My sister-in-law told her friends what happened, and although no one has dared to go down there, several went to check it out. They told me they did hear her, that one of them even recorded it. I'm going to share with you the exact location of this rest stop, so that anyone who wants to verify that the legend is real can do so. You decide if you want to check it out or not. Uriel. I know sometimes you prefer not to give exact locations, but come on, there aren't that many rest stops in La Rumorosa. Anyone who wants to verify if the Witch of the Stones exists just has to stop at one of those spots. And if they hear her, they can go down and see for themselves. I share my Uncle Abraham's view, wherever he may be. Sometimes, seeing evil face to face isn't a bad thing. It gives you perspective. It makes you understand that we are not alone, that there's something beyond our comprehension. Because if evil exists, then good also exists. That's inevitable. Though, in my case, I don't want to see her again. Once was enough. Community, I hope you enjoyed this story and that it gave you chills. But this brings us to a very important call to action. We all know representative legends from our communities, from our city. But there are many others that may not be as popular, that are closer to us, and that can be verified because they are true. Some of those legends we know because someone close to us has witnessed them. Let's start with the United States, where we have the largest part of our community, but we won't stop there. That's why I'm inviting all of you to share a truly chilling legend from your state. It could be a modern or ancient tale, urban or colonial, something that feels close to home. Maybe something you've experienced or heard from someone you trust. We're going to travel across the U.S., state by state, uncovering the darkest and most haunting legends out there. Sounds good? Then I'm putting out a special call to California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Georgia for our first episode of Terrifying Legends. Do you have a story to share? Feel free to reach out. I'd be thrilled to tell it here for our entire community. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like or thumbs up if you enjoyed the story. And please, let me know in the comments what legends or paranormal stories you know from your city or state. Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you encountered something unexplainable? Your participation is what makes this community grow and become stronger. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you in advance for sharing your stories and legends. See you next time.